فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وعامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرض مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيعا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل له فقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيعا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة النجية ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيوتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيوتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال بي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق النبية واستفاني بالرسالة النجية ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جم من شيوتنا ومحبينا وفيه مغموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله همه ولا طالب حاجته إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيوتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात।
مقصد کا محور فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے مقصد کا محور فاطمہ یعنی شرح عظمت نور پیمبر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے ان سے پھیلا دین حق ان سے بڑھی نسل رسول ان سے پھیلا دین حق ان سے بڑھی نسل رسول ایک کوثر ہے علی اور ایک کوثر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے کشتی دین خدا کی ناخدا ثابت ہوئی کشتی دین خدا کی ناخدا ثابت ہوئی شبر و شبیر جیسے دین کا لنگر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کام تسبیح خدا نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کام تسبیح خدا ذکر تیرا ذکر حق اللہ اکبر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے تیری خدمت میں ہوا فضا کو قرآن بر زبان تیری خدمت میں ہوا فضا کو قرآن بر زبان اے لسان اللہ اے ایمان پرور فاطمہ آیا تطہیر لکھنے کے لیے تقدیر نے آیا تطہیر لکھنے کے لیے تقدیر نے تیری سیرت کو بنایا اس کا مصدر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے مقصد کا محور فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے تو کرے اپنے جنازے کے لیے شب کو پسند تو کرے اپنے جنازے کے لیے شب کو پسند اور تیری دختر ہو بلوے میں کھلے سر فاطمہ محور فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے زہر شبر کو دیا ٹکڑے جگر کے ہو گئے زہر شبر کو دیا ٹکڑے جگر کے ہو گئے پھر گیا شبیر کی گردن پہ خنجر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے مقصد کا محور فاطمہ یعنی شرح عظمت نور پیمبر فاطمہ آیا تطہیر کے محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
اللہم صلی علی محمد
بر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآلہ
ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے کیسے دروازہ ہٹاؤں کیسے محسن کو بچاؤں سانس سینے میں رکی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے تیری امت نے بنا دی ہے یہ حالت بابا کوئی پسلی بھی نہیں میری سلامت بابا سانس لیتی ہوں میں جس دم رکنے لگتا ہے میرا دم صرف مرنے کی کمی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے جب سے حسنین کے بابا سے سنا ہے یہ کلام مجھ کو اب کوئی مدینے میں نہیں کرتا سلام تب سے یہ حال ہے میرا اپنا غم بھول کے بابا بس مجھے فکر علی ہے تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے شرم آتی ہے بھلا تم کو بتاؤں کیسے یہ تماچوں کے نشان تم کو دکھاؤں کیسے، تم نہ پہچان سکو گے، دیکھ کر مجھ کو کہو گے کیا میری زہرا یہی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ آپ کے بعد مصائب کی ہوئی یوں برسات، دن پہ پڑ جاتے اگر دکھ تو وہ بن جاتے رات، مجھ سے ملنے کو جب آنا پوچھنا مجھ سے نہ بابا، کیوں کمر میری جھکی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ خبر زہرا سے تکلم یہ صدا آتی ہے، کتنی صدیوں سے میری قبر پہ ویرانی ہے، پھول تربت پہ چڑھانے ایک دیا لا کے جلانے، کیا مدینے میں کوئی ہے، تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ ہائے بابا تیری زہرا پہ مصیبت کی گھڑی ہے۔ بر محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ بلقیس پاسباں ہے یہ کس کی جناب ہے، مریم درود خواں ہے یہ کس کی جناب ہے، شان خدایاں ہے یہ کس کی جناب ہے، دہلیز آسماں ہے یہ کس دہلیز آسماں ہے یہ کس کی جناب ہے، کرسی زمیں سے لیتی ہے گوش پناہ کے، بیٹھا ہے عرش سائے میں، بیٹھا ہے عرش سائے میں کے، الفت خدا کے بعد حبیب خدا کی ہے، منصف کے پاس یہ بھی ولا کبریا کی ہے، پروانہ فاقے کی نا شکایت غذا کی ہے، ایذا فقط جدائی ایذا فقط جدائی خیر الورا کی ہے، آب و غذا کی فکر نہ سونے کا دھیان ہے، آنکھوں میں شکل آنکھوں میں شکل باپ کے رونے کا دھیان ہے، بیٹے پکارتے ہیں کہ للہ باہر آؤ، اماں اتنا رو، غلاموں پہ رحم کھاؤ، نانا کہاں گئے ہیں، بلا لائے ہم بتاؤ، ہم کپڑے پھاڑتے ہیں، ہم کپڑے پھاڑتے ہیں نہیں تو نانا کے بعد آئے یہ بے قدر ہم ہوئے، سب ایک طرف حضور کے، سب ایک طرف حضور کے بھی پیار کم ہوئے، بولی کہ آج رات کو ہو جاؤں گی بحال، کل میرے کاروبار میں تم ہوں گے خود نڈھال، خدمت کا میرے بچوں کی ہوگا کسے خیال، نہلا دھلا دیا کے پر، نہلا دھلا دیا کے پر، کرتے بھی دوئے خود بھی کل تک کا دے چلی، صحرا نہ دیکھا ایک کے صحرا نہ دیکھا ایک کے مان لے چلی، اے میری فاقہ کشمیری نادار مجان، اے میری بے دوا میری بیمار مجان، کعبے کی آبرو میری سردار مجان، اے میری صابرہ میری نا، اے میری صابرہ میری نا چار مجان، نانا موئے تو کوئی تازہ خطاب دو، اماں جواب دو میری، اماں جواب دو میری، اماں جواب دو، میں دودھ بخشوانے نا پائی کے چل بسی، شربت بنا کے لانے نا پائی کے چل بسی، کچھ حال دل سنانے نا پائی کے چل بسی، میں بدنصیبانے نا، میں بدنصیبانے نا پائی کے چل بسی، کیا جلد تر زمانہ ہوا انتقال کا، ہے ابھی تو سنتھا کلا، ہے ابھی تو سنتھا کلا سال کا، ننے سے سر کھلے ہیں نہیں سر پہ ٹوپیاں، کہتے ہیں کچھ تو منہ سے نکلتا ہے ہائے ماں، لکھا ہے اب جنازے پہ پہنچے وہ نیم جاں، حسرت سے دیکھا مردے کا، حسرت سے دیکھا مردے کا منہ، اور یہ فی خغاں اماں غلام آئے ہیں رخصت کے واسطے، جاتی ہو تم نبی کی ضیا، جاتی ہو تم نبی کی زیارت کے واسطے،
Just Moulana is running a few minutes behind. We'll do another mercy, inshallah. He'll be here soon.
بستر سے تھر تھرا کے اٹھی تھام کر عصا قبر نبی پا فاتحہ آخری پڑھا ہم سائوں کے گھر گئی رخصت کو کہا لو صاحب پہل کرو لو صاحب پہل کرو پوچھے ایزا تھی تم سبوں کو میرے شور و شین سے کل فاطمہ نہ ہوگی کل فاطمہ نہ ہوگی تم سونا چین سے ہم سائے کے حقوق سے آگاہ ہے جہاں لوگوں میرے یتیموں سے رہنا نگہباں اب ساتھ ان کو تمہارا ہے ہم کہاں بن ماں کی ہوتی ہے میری بن ماں کی ہوتی ہے میری دنیاری بیٹیاں بچپن پاپ نے بچوں کے آنسو بہاتی ہوں تم پر حسن حسین کو میں چھوڑے جاؤں تم پر حسن حسین کو میں چھوڑے تم پر حسن حسین کو میں چھوڑے جاؤں رو کر کبھی حسن کو گلے سے لگا لیا آغوش میں حسین کو گاہیں بٹھا لیا رخصت کیا کسی کو بلا لیا پڑھنے کے واسطے کبھی قرآن اٹھا پڑھنے کے واسطے کبھی قرآن اٹھا کہتی تھی گاہ بچوں سے منہ اپنا موڑ کے کل سونے گھر میں سونا ہے بستی کو چھوڑ کل سونے گھر میں سونا ہے بستی کو چھوڑ کے سن لو وصیت میری اس وقت یا امام فضا سے میرے بعد عدالت سے لینا کام ہوشیار فاطمہ کی امانت سے صبح و شام دو بیٹیاں دو بیٹے بس خدا دو بیٹیاں دو بیٹے بس خدا میں نے بڑے دکھوں سے یہ سب بچے پالے ہیں حق کے حوالے تمہارے حوالے حق کے حوالے تمہارے حوالے ہیں لے کر بلائیں بیٹی کی زہرا نے یہ کہا روتی تو ہوں زیادہ نہ زینب مجھے رلا کچھ بھائیوں کے سونپنے کا سمجھ مو دعا تو ان کے رونے والی ہے ذرا تو ان کے رونے والی ہے ذرا کیا بس میرا جو مرضی پروردگار ہے زینب تمام کنبے کی زینب تمام کنبے کی زینب تمام تمہیں سوگوار ہے.
اور محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
آیے تطہیر کے مقصد کا محور فاطمہ. مقصد کا محور فاطمہ یعنی شرح عظمت نور پیمبر فاطمہ. ان سے بڑھی نسل رسول، ان سے پھیلا دین حق، ان سے بڑھی نسل رسول. ایک کوثر ہے علی اور ایک کوثر فاطمہ. خدا ثابت ہوئی کاشت یہ دین خدا کی ناخدا ثابت ہوئی. شبر و شبیر جیسے دیں کا لنگر فاطمہ. نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کام تسبیح خدا. نام ہے تسبیح زہرا کام تسبیح خدا. ذکر تیرا ذکر حق اللہ اکبر فاطمہ. تطہیر کے تیری خدمت میں ہوا فضا کو قرآن بر زبان. تیری خدمت میں ہوا فضا کو قرآن بر زبان. اے لسان اللہ اے ایمان پرور فاطمہ. آیا تطہیر لکھنے کے لیے تقدیر نے सज़का महवर फातिमा आया तत्हीर के।
Can I request everyone to come a little bit closer to the member, please? Thank you so much. Thank you. Please scoot over. Even yesterday we had a hard time. There were people sitting out in the hallway. We still had a little bit of space in the front. Please come. Thank you so much. I apologize for the delay today. They were stuck in a situation, but Alhamdulillah, Moulana is here safe and sound, so that's a good thing. Inshallah, starting tomorrow, we will start early. We will be having a Q&A session right after the Nohas. We will have a couple of Nohas, then after that we'll have a Q&A session, so please do stick around for that. Thank you so much. With this, I would like to invite Sayyid Mahdi to please come and take the minbar. Please recite a loud salawat for him.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المظلومين الغر الميامين. صلى الله عليك وعلى ابنتك المظلومة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. For the hastening of the reappearance of the Master, the Mawla, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal farajah. Francis Fukuyama and other thinkers of the 21st century have postulated the idea that the world is headed towards a clash of civilizations. But the truth of the matter is that when it comes to the economy, for example, there is hardly any clash. There is fierce competition, yes, but there's no clash. The world cooperates when it comes to economic development. Countries get into business and exchange brains and ideas and inventions and thoughts, as well as currencies, in order to develop financially and economically. You look at an iPhone, and it's designed by Apple in California, using parts that have been manufactured in Taiwan and assembled in China and then sold across the globe. Yes, there is competition, and the competition is cutthroat and it's fierce, but there's hardly any clash. The real clash is in a clash of cultures. It's about your value system. It's about what you hold dear. It's about what you prioritize in your life. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice and for what. That's where the real clash is. Let me give you a very basic example. So we associate divorce with what? With heartache, with pain, with families disintegrating, with children growing up without a father figure or a mother figure, being emotionally deprived. So divorce is a very negative factor that occurs and often sends shockwaves in the social fabric of society. No two sane people disagree on that. However, did you know that many economists view divorce as a positive economic factor? In other words, if you have a country with a rising divorce rate, for example, here in the United States, there are roughly 30 million people that identify as divorced. So they've been married and they're divorced now. Economists look at these statistics, and if the divorce rate is rising, they usually associate that with economic development. They say that the reason divorce rates are going up is because divorce is becoming more affordable. It's because banks are giving loans more liberally. It's because the individual who is seeking divorce is now able to financially buy out their share in the family home. It's because they're now able to afford the legal fees, the very high legal fees associated with divorce proceedings. In other words, divorce is a good thing. It's unbelievable. It's a clash of cultures, brothers and sisters. Do you value the cohesion of the family unit over economic development? Which is it? Sometimes being quote unquote stuck in an unhappy marriage means that you have to sacrifice economic prosperity. Yes, it means you won't be able to get the family home. Yes, it means that you won't be free from the shackles of being married to someone and having children to look after, and you could go and follow your dreams and pursue your career objectives and so on and so forth. But which is more important to you? You see what I mean? The real clash is in cultures. The clash is in value systems. The clash is in what you hold dearer, right? And so these value systems are often derived from role models. Because whether we like to admit it or not, at the end of the day, we all emulate, we adore certain individuals, and you view them as worthy of emulation. In other words, you have certain people in your mind, whether they're fictitious, they're a figment of your imagination, like comic heroes and movie stars and whatnot, or they are real, breathing human beings, either historical or contemporary, people who are living or dead, it doesn't matter. You look at these people and you adore them as emblematic and symbolic of true success. In other words, you consider those people to be the epitome of success and therefore worthy of being emulated, worthy of being followed. And whether we like to admit it or not, every single person has either one or more individuals that they value like this, that they adore and idolize in this manner that I just explained. So you have a clash of cultures. These cultures are largely dependent upon role models. So the real clash is in role models. It's who you adore, who you idolize, who you respect. Now, in many societies around the world, these idols, these heroes, these role models are produced by mass media. They're produced in Hollywood. They start as a sketch. The sketch is then developed. You create a script. The script is then turned into a movie. The movie is distributed worldwide, and suddenly you have children around the world idolizing the individual that they saw on the silver screen. For example, in 2017, who was the ultimate female role model? Wonder Woman. You had little female children, girls, wearing what this comic heroine wore on the screen, acting out her moves, repeating after her statements. Suddenly this worldwide sensation was created over a film that is entirely fictitious, entirely based on a lie. It's not even a true story. Subhanallah. And you don't hear anybody saying, why are little girls dressing up like this fictitious movie character? If a little girl decided to wear the hijab and go to school on her own and based entirely on her decision to put on the hijab, suddenly in the United Kingdom there's now talk that headmasters have the right to remove the hijab from children, from little girls who decide that, you know what, I don't want to idolize some fictitious movie heroine called Wonder Woman. I want to emulate someone called Fatima Zahra. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And that means dressing up the way she did. Yeah, absolutely. I want to wear what she wore. Where's the problem there? But that's how our society functions these days. If you emulate a fictitious, bogus movie character, it's perfectly fine. In fact, it's admirable. But if you decide to emulate someone who was labeled the mistress of the women of the world from the beginning of time to the end of time, someone whose bravery is attested to by both her friends as well as her enemies, someone whose role in shaping society, whose position that challenged authority, and whose words and actions matched one another, then we have a problem. Then they start talking to you about, oh, are you coercing children? Are you forcing children to wear the hijab? What if they choose to wear the hijab? That's a problem. But if they're brainwashed into wearing a costume, that's perfectly fine. Anyway, you look at Fatima Zahra and you see an individual who was perfectly relatable. You see, now, if you follow the news and social media, there's a lot of talk. There is royal wedding fever. And not just in England, but across the globe. Especially when this wedding involves an American citizen who also happened to be an actress and a member of the royal family of the House of Windsor in the United Kingdom. Oh boy, we got royal wedding fever. But in reality, is this marriage, is this union something that you can emulate? Can you relate to it even in the most remote fashion? Absolutely not. How can you relate to it? They're royals. They are kings and queens and princes and princesses. How on earth are they supposed to be role models for me? There is absolutely no common ground between us and them. But it's a royal wedding. Everybody is following it. If the to-be bride wears a dress to some function somewhere, suddenly that dress is out of stock. If she decides to carry a handbag, suddenly that handbag is the bestseller. This is how our brains are wired, brothers and sisters. Like I said, whether we like to admit it or not, we're always craving some idol that we can emulate and follow. So here's the critical question. Who is your idol? Who is your role model? Who is your master and mistress? Is it going to be some royal individual? Or is it going to be someone who was royalty but without any royalty? Someone who was the daughter of the messenger of God, the Lord's greatest creation, but without pomposity and vanity. Who's it going to be? So whether it's Wonder Woman, the royal couple, or celebrities of all shapes and sizes, these are personalities that impose themselves on society and are on our brains and on our children. What's important, and I've always said this, and it's a no-brainer, we all recognize this, the important thing for us as parents, as educators, as elders in a family is to provide our children with the right role models. And you do that not by imposing anything, but by presenting the up-and-coming generation with the stories, the parables, the statements, the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. May God's peace and blessings be upon them. You have to allow them to grow and for their flesh and their blood to be mixed with the stories of the Ahlul Bayt. And the best way to do that, something that I've tried in my own life, my father tried it with us, myself and my siblings, and many other people have done so as well, is that people tell their children bedtime stories. Brothers and sisters, don't let the hustle and bustle of daily life, the struggle of your 9-to-5 job, deprive you of those precious few moments that you have with your children. When your kids go to school, don't read them the story of the 3 little piggies, even though I can think of 3 little piggies that we can tell them about. But instead, tell them stories about the Ahlul Bayt. Make the Imams, the Ahlul Bayt, Fatima al-Zahra, relatable and within their reach, within their grasp, right? So, Fatima al-Zahra was exactly that. She lived a life of pure and utter asceticism. It's incredible that when you are the daughter of not just God's final messenger and seal of prophets. Remember, Rasulullah was also the head of state. Rasulullah unified the entire Arabian Peninsula within 13 years. These were a bunch of savages that lived off of fighting and wars and carnage. Fatima al-Zahra refers to that fact in her sermon in which she says, كنتم على شفا حفرة من النار تخافون أن يتخطفكم الناس من حولكم. She says, when my father was sent as a messenger, as a prophet to deliver God's message to you, do you remember how you lived? Your economic status was so bad that your culinary arts composed of eating camel hair dipped in blood. This was like a famous dish at the time. They were going through famine. There wasn't enough food to go around. So they took dead camels, plucked off their hair, dipped it in the camel's own blood and ate it as dessert or God knows what. This was your economic status. As for your cultural status, do you know how many people were literate at the time when the Prophet was sent? How many people could actually read and write? Historians have recorded the names. Suffice to say that the names of the literate members of society have been recorded. 17. That's your cultural status at the time. As for your security situation, don't even get me started. There's a guy who comes to the Prophet. He says to the Messenger of Allah, present me with your religion. Tell me, what are you here for? What are you trying to preach to us? So the Prophet presented him with Islam. So then he turns to the Prophet, he says to him, okay, that sounds really good. I actually like it, right? But I've got a couple of questions. The first is, what happens if we actually subscribe to this religion of yours? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to get in return? The Prophet said to him, well, when you die, you're going to go to heaven, you're going to go to paradise. God's mercy will envelop you. So he's like, okay, cool. Question number one. Question number two, when we do end up going to paradise, can we still fight there? The Prophet said, well, no. I mean, that defeats the whole purpose of paradise. There is peace and there is love and there is harmony. There's no fighting there. He goes, damn it, I don't want this religion. I want a religion where I can continue to fight no matter what. Whether I'm at war or not, whether I'm in this world or the next, I want to be able to kill people. This is what you were like, Fatima Zahra says. She says, then God sent none other than my father, wa Abi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He said, he was my father, wasn't he? Do you recognize who I am? أيها الناس اعلموا أني فاطمة وأبي Muhammad. I am his daughter. Is there anyone else out there in society who can claim that they are the son or daughter of this prophet other than I? No, there isn't. So you recognize who I am. You recognize who my father is. You recognize what my father did for you. His heart bled for your sake. He brought you from the slums of your own ignorance and your path towards self-destruction. He pulled you out and he made human beings out of you after you had been nothing but savage animals for centuries on end, thriving on killing each other and ravaging each other and raping each other's women and killing each other's children. I remember I was at a church once and I talked about Islam, and at the end this woman stood up and she said to me, but that's mighty arrogant of you though, isn't it? To claim that your prophet is the last of God's prophets. That's kind of arrogant, don't you think? I said, why? She said, well, it means that you claim that Arabs were the best people, deserving of God's final prophet. I said, to the contrary. What I'm telling you is that Arabs were the scum of the earth, which is why God decided, and by the way, I'm an Arab, so hopefully we won't have any violent protests and flag burnings out there. I said, the prophet was sent to them, the reason for that was because God recognized that these people, these savages, these thugs, needed God's grace and mercy and guidance more than anybody else, right? Among other reasons. But the point of it is this: Fatima Zahra says, do you not know who you were, what you were before my father was sent to you? And then she says to them, she says, my father was sent, but he wasn't alone. My father had someone who was his cousin, who was the first to believe in him, who was his backer, his supporter, the one he called on to whenever he was faced with the enemy, whenever he was outnumbered and you all fled from the battlefield. Fatima Zahra was very frank in this sermon, incredibly honest. Had anybody else spoken the way she did, they would not have accepted it. But it's Fatima Zahra. She said, you all fled from the battlefields. You all went back to the embrace of your wives and your families, living in comfort and in peace because you knew all along that there was a man named Ali ibn Abi Talib fighting for you. Ali did all the fighting on your behalf. Ali was the one who came back after Uhud to the house of his beloved wife Fatima with 80 wounds. I was the one who healed those wounds. I was the one who covered those wounds. This is who you are. Last night I said something that I just want to continue and just wrap up. The irony of all ironies is that, just think about this for a moment. God always intended for the grave of Hussein to be the symbol of sacrifice for all righteous people throughout history. The shrine of Hussein is emblematic of the spirit of sacrifice, revolution, justice, freedom. And so the enemies, they spared no effort. They did everything humanly possible to completely and utterly obliterate any trace of the grave of Imam al-Hussein. They demolished the grave, they razed it to the ground 4 times. Did you know that? After razing it to the ground, they then flooded the entire area. Then they brought cows and other cattle and they brought farmers to turn the entire area into a farm, grow trees and grass and have animals go around to completely erase any trace of the grave of Imam al-Hussein. They did everything they could, but every time they did something, the grave of Hussein shined ever more greatly. The symbol of Hussein, the name of Hussein, the remembrance of Hussein. The ziyarah that you see, the walk in Arba'een, is but a small manifestation of a verse in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and I quote, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. They're trying to blow out the light of God with their mouths. Imagine if an imbecile, a moron, came out in the middle of the street at midday, looked at the sun and said, you know what, I want to blow the sun away, and started blowing toward it with his mouth. Wouldn't you laugh him off? Allah says, yuriduna, they surely want to, and yutfi'u nur Allah, to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths. وَيَأْبَى اللَّهُ إِلَّا أَن يُتِمَّ نُورَهُ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. But God refuses. The language of the verse is incredible. God Almighty refuses to allow that to happen. Instead, God will complete His religion, even if the evildoers, the disbelievers, refuse to acknowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, this is the story of all righteous men and women throughout history, isn't it? They're like a precious metal. The more you beat it, the more you burn it, the more you scorch it, the brighter it'll glow. There's really nothing you can do about it. And as I said, Ziyaratul Arba'een is one manifestation of that. 20 million people marching towards the grave of Imam al-Hussein, 14 centuries after the legendary stance that Abu Abdullah took on the day of Ashura in the land of Karbala. So the irony is this: they tried to obliterate the grave of Hussein so that it's no longer an emblem of justice and freedom for the righteous men and women of God. On the other hand, the missing grave of Fatima Zahra is in itself an enduring symbol of the oppression that the one buried in that grave was subjected to. The fact that the grave and its location is unknown, like I said, delegitimized the regime, number one. And number two, this whole thing that you hear nowadays, that all the companions really loved each other, everything was hunky-dory, everything was cool, they didn't have any problems, it was just minor disagreements. If that were the case, then why don't we know where Fatima is buried? What this proves is that Fatima did not allow anyone to participate in her funeral and did not allow anyone to visit her grave even after she died. That's how angry she was. And of course, we mentioned Bukhari saying that whoever angers Fatima angers me, meaning Rasulullah. And whoever angers me angers God Himself. The undisclosed location of the grave of Fatima Zahra is an enduring symbol of the anger and wrath of God upon the nation that broke its covenant with Rasulullah. The same messenger who said, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. I don't ask you for any compensation. I don't ask you to give me anything in return for saving you from your own path towards self-destruction. I don't want anything from you. But if there is one thing God instructs me to ask you, is to look after my family. And that was what they did to his family. To the point where we don't even know where Fatima Zahra is buried. So that's point number one that I wanted to just kind of tie up the loose ends. Point number two was about the sermon of Fatima Zahra. Listen, brothers and sisters. The sermon of Fatima is often referred to as Al-Fadakiyyah, and that's what it's known for. The problem, though, is that when you call it Fadakiyyah, you are reducing it to the dispute over the land of Fadak, which, by the way, the land of Fadak was used as a pretext. It was used almost as an excuse by Fatima Zahra to delegitimize the regime, to expose its lies and deceptions, to reveal the hideous face of those conniving enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the land of Fadak and the fact that it was usurped is enough in and of itself to expose them. But the sermon, as I said last night, has the distinctive flavor and zest of the sermons of Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen. It's more than just about the issue of Fadak. But again, that was the pretext. The sermon started with Fadak being usurped, but it ended up destroying the entire house of cards that was built by the system of Saqifa. How did it start? And I just want to mention a couple of statements and try and explain them, inshallah, because I honestly believe that as speakers, when we sit on the mimbar, on this blessed institution, that's not just a piece of furniture. This is a blessed institution. It needs to be looked after. It needs to be highly scrutinized and honored and respected. So when we are blessed by the ability to address these wonderful, luminous faces of the lovers of Fatima Zahra, I feel that especially during the Fatimiyya, especially on the days where we commemorate the tragedy that befell Fatima Zahra, the central theme of these lectures has to be the Fadakiyya sermon. Let's not veer off to the sides. Let's not talk about other less important things. The Fadakiyya sermon has the power to bring anyone who is struggling religiously, spiritually, or in terms of their rites and rituals as Muslims, it has the power to bring them back, to draw them back, because it represents the very core and essence of Islam. So the way this whole thing started, just to give you some context. And by the way, if you hear anybody who is dumb enough to question the credibility and authenticity of the sermon of Fatima Zahra, here's what you tell them. You tell them that one of the earliest sources that narrated the sermon of Fatima Zahra is a Sunni source. It's not a Shia source. What is it? This is the title of the book. It's called Balaghatun Nisa. Balaghatun Nisa is a book that was written by its author. The author was born in the year 204 Hijri. That's over 1,200 years ago. This isn't something that was made up. And the title of the book is interesting. So he collected sermons that were delivered by famous women in Islam. His intention wasn't to support the content of the sermon. He wasn't concerned with that. What he was concerned was the eloquence of the sermon, the delivery of the sermon, the beauty of the rhetoric, the words, the vernacular. And so, he collects this book called Balaghatun Nisa, meaning the eloquence of women. And the first sermon that he reports in that book is not the Fadakiyya. The second is the Fadakiyya of Fatima Zahra. The third is the sermon of Lady Zainab alayhi salam in the court of Yazid. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, in terms of authenticity, go back 1,220 odd years or 30 odd years, and you'll find it narrated by Sunni historians. And after that, there were hundreds of scholars and orators and narrators and commentators on the Quran who narrated this sermon. As for Shia sources, well, suffice to say that Zayd ibn Ali ibn al-Hussein, the martyr Zayd, the son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he says, Inna ashyakha Abi Talib. He says the most distinguished members of the family of Abu Talib, I have seen them narrate this sermon from their forefathers and their ancestors and teach it to their children. They taught it to their children. And so our scholars have narrated the sermon over and over again, abundantly and without any shadow of doubt. Now, the story starts like this. When the first assumes power through the coup d'etat, one of the first things he does is he sends after Fadak. Now, what was Fadak historically? Very briefly and without getting into too much details. In Islam, we have two closely related but different concepts. One is called ghanaim. Ghanima is the booty of war, the spoils of war. When Muslims go into a religiously sanctioned war and they end up winning the war, becoming victorious, what they collect from the possessions of the enemy is called what? The spoils of war. In Arabic we call them, and the Quran calls it what? Ghanaim. Ghanima is the spoils of war. But there is and what happens with the spoils of war is that they are distributed among the Muslims. Anyone who participated in the battle gets a share, gets an equal share. The other concept is called anfal. Anfal, which is also mentioned in the Quran, is different from the spoils of war. How? Sometimes there's a battle, or the battle doesn't even start. The enemy submits to the Muslim side, and they make a peace offering. So anfal are peace offerings. They're not spoils. They are possessions, money, property, cattle that is handed over voluntarily to Rasulullah. So what's the rule here? Does this also get distributed equally among Muslims? No. This becomes the personal property of Rasulullah. Of course, Rasulullah isn't looking to collect money. Rasulullah lived like the poorest person even while he was the head of state. But what this means is that it becomes his to decide what to do with it. If he decides to give it to the poor, he gives it to the poor. If he decides to give it to someone, he gives it. He is entitled to deal with it as he wishes. Fadak was an anfal. Essentially, go back to Fakhrul Razi. Fakhrul Razi is to the Sunnis the way Al-Tabarsi, Wat-Tusi, and Sayyid Hashim al-Bahrani are to the Shia. He is the most prominent commentator on the Quran. His commentary, his exegesis is held at a very high esteem. Al-Fakhrul Razi narrates these traditions. He says that after the Battle of Khaybar, certain segments within the Jewish community that occupied Khaybar, remember Khaybar is about 120 miles outside of Medina. So after the battle, some of these people came to the Prophet. They said to him, okay, we have a peace offering we'd like to give you in exchange for our safety. So Rasulullah accepted. What did they give the Prophet? They gave him a parcel of land called Fadak. Fakhrul Razi narrates, he says, as soon as they gave Fadak to the Prophet, the archangel of Allah, Jibreel, descended upon him with a message from God. What was the message? This verse in the Quran. وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ. Give your kindred their right. Your close family members, give them their right. Fakhrul Razi again says, فَدَعَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ بِفَاطِمَةِ. He said, Fatima, I have a mandate from Allah. I've been instructed to do this. Fatima comes, فَأَعْطَاهَا فَدَكًا. The Prophet gave her Fadak. Now, Fadak was in the possession of Fatima az-Zahra. She then appointed agents, farmers, workers that represented her, who started working on this land, farming, and basically whatever the land produced was now in the possession of Fatima az-Zahra. As soon as the leader of the coup becomes Khalifa, he realizes that when you have opposition in the form of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Fatima az-Zahra, Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein, these people who were never consulted on the process of selecting the Khalifa, they were never a part of the process, they were deliberately sidelined and neglected. He realized, and of course Amir al-Mu'mineen was the one who received the pledge of allegiance from 120,000 people on the day of Ghadir. The first person to give allegiance to Amir al-Mu'mineen, do you know who it was? The first person, Abu Bakr. The second person, Umar. The third person, Uthman. And they all approached Amir al-Mu'mineen saying, Bakhin, bakhin laka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Asbahta mawlai wa mawla kulli mu'minin wa mu'mina. Congratulations, O Ali. You are our master now and the master of every believing man and woman. So, when you steal something from someone, that person that you stole from, you are most careful with, right? Because you know that they know that you stole from them. You're always seeing them through the barrel of the gun. You're always afraid that they might come and reclaim their right. So what does he do? He says, look, we need to dry up their financial resources. If this family has money, they'll be able to build an army. They'll be able to fight back. They'll be able to reclaim their right. They'll be able to establish themselves and maintain their status in society, right? Because he knew that Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima az-Zahra, by the way, do you know what Fatima az-Zahra did with the returns and the returns on the investment in Fatak? The money that came, and it was a lot of money, she gave it to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen would give it to the poor. I mean, let's not forget, this is the same family that starved for 3 days. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. They're not looking for money. They're not even looking for a word of gratitude. They're not even looking for a thank you. They're not here to enjoy their lives on this planet. They were created for another world. So they gave it away to people. But these people realized, the co-conspirators realized that if this money remains in their hands, they're going to give it away to people. People will continue to adore them, to respect them, and that might turn out in a manner that is not conducive to our coup d'etat. So he sends people after the agents of Fatima az-Zahra, throws them all out. As soon as Fatima az-Zahra hears this, listen, I'm giving you context. These are important details. فلما سمعت بذلك اشتملت بجلبابها ولاثت خمارها وخرجت في لمة من حفدتها ونساء قومها تطأ ثيابها ما تخرم مشيتها مشية رسول الله. Fatima az-Zahra put on her aba. She put on the aba'ah. She covered herself fully. Then she walked out surrounded by her female relatives, servants, and other women in her family. She was wearing a dress that was so long. Again, I'm just telling you the facts. You deal with them whichever way you want. MashaAllah, this audience is an intelligent one. I don't need to elaborate on any of this and the symbolism and the meaning of all of this, where Fatima az-Zahra dresses up like this. She was wearing a dress so long that she kept tripping over it. تَطَأُ ذُيُولَهَا مَا تَخْرِمُ مِشْيَتُهَا مِشْيَةَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. She walked like Rasulullah would walk. She went to the masjid surrounded by all of these women, indistinguishable from the other women in the family. She enters the mosque. فَنِيطَتْ دُونَ آمُلَاءَ. They put a curtain between her and the audience. ثُمَّ جَلَسَتْ. Now, when you're giving a public address, especially one like the fiery sermon of Fatima, it's much more comfortable if you're standing up, isn't it? That's what happens when you're giving like an address, a presidential proclamation or something along the lines. But Fatima no longer had the strength to keep standing up. What they had done to her, the ambush, the attack on the house, it had stripped her of all her strengths. No iota of power remained in her. فَجَلَسَتْ ثُمَّ أَنَّتْ She moaned. She let out a sigh of pain. أَجْهَشَ الْقَوْمُ لَهَا بِالْبُكَاءِ People burst into tears. This moan, this sigh of grief of Fatima, what was it that made people burst into tears? Ajhasha in Arabic. Have you seen like when a child is hungry or really frustrated or tired? The child doesn't just shed tears. The child can't seem to contain himself. He stands up and then he sits down and then he bangs his head against the wall and the floor and just doesn't have the ability to just sit still. This is what ajhasha means. It means dhajja. Ajhasha al-qawmu laha bil-buka. Everyone started crying. The wound of the loss of Rasulullah was still fresh. Fatima Zahra says that in her sermon. She says, وَالْجُرْحُ لَمَّا يَنْدَمِلْ وَالنَّبِيُّ لَمَّا يُقْبَرْ Rasulullah was still, the water that was used to bathe the body of Rasulullah was still dripping from his sacred body. And yet you assembled under a shade called Saqifat Bani Sa'ida and you conspired to turn his religion over on its face. The wound is still fresh. The pain is still real and present. We're still grieving over Rasulullah, and this is what you do. You break your promise, you break your covenant. Anyway, I want to mention just one or two parts from the sermon that she mentions later on, inshallah, for our benefit. She says in one part of her sermon, she talks about some of the philosophies behind the divine injunctions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the prohibitions. She mentions exactly 20 of them. In other words, the philosophy, the wisdom behind a certain act. Why go to Hajj? Why perform Salah? Why give Zakat? It's incredible, brothers and sisters. Honestly, this sermon is absolutely incredible. Like I said, it's the essence of Islam. She explains why God revealed these injunctions and why He prohibited the consumption of alcohol and so on and so forth. In one of those parts, she says, وَبِرَّ الْوَالِدَيْنِ Looking after your parents. Filial piety, as it's often referred to. Treating your parents with kindness. What does it do? Fatima Zahra says it repels sukht or sakhat. Let me try and explain that a little bit. Let me try and zoom in without taking too much of your time. Brothers and sisters, as human beings, we make mistakes, right? An endless barrage of mistakes on a daily basis. We commit sins. We transgress the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Now, every time we commit a sin, the consequence of that, the physical repercussion of it, is God's wrath and anger. Now, of course, we all know that God doesn't get angry in the sense that we get angry. It's not an emotional state. Rather, as scholars refer to it, they say بِلِحَاظِ الْأَثَرِ, meaning that the anger of God is the manifestation of the consequence of that anger. In other words, to rephrase, God's wrath is when you find problems in your life that is caused by the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is in itself caused by our transgressions and our sins. So for example, I commit a sin and God's wrath manifests itself in the form of my inability to live a happy life. Happiness is stripped from my life. Why? Because I'm committing sins. I'm making a truckload of money, but I'm still not happy. Why? Because of those sins. Or traditions tell us that sometimes you commit a sin and you get sick. You commit a sin, and these are all manifestations of the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One might commit a sin, and the result of that would be that they end up getting married to the wrong person, and a lifetime of heartache and problems and pain and misery. One might commit a sin, and the consequence of that would be that they are stripped of the tawfiq to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pleasure of devotion to God is stripped away from them because of the sins that they've committed. Traditions tell us that sometimes one of the worst punishments that God can impose upon a man or woman who commits sins is that their heart turns into stone. In other words, no compassion in their hearts. They couldn't care less. They see someone who's sick, someone who's poor, someone who's in pain and suffering, they don't care. Right? So, sins lead to God's anger. God's anger essentially means problems sprouting in our lives. So what do? Fatima al-Zahra here, she refers to a door that God has opened for us to be relieved of these problems. What is that door? She says, familial piety. Looking after your parents, treating them with kindness and mercy and compassion. Obeying them, respecting them, being pious in regards to how you treat them. She says that this allows you to be relieved of the consequences of your sins. Allahu Akbar. This is critical, brothers and sisters. You know why? Because you and I could never have been able to connect the dots. What's the relation between looking after your parents, their well-being, trying to procure their pleasure, and us not having marital problems with our wives? There is no obvious connection between the two. But Fatima al-Zahra is drawing that connection. Given her God-inspired knowledge, she's creating a formula that allows us to prosper and to flourish and to live happy lives. Let me give you an example to explain how that works. Back in the old days, when someone's face turned pale or yellow, they couldn't figure out what was going on with this individual. So they ran tests and they did all kinds of different things, and there was magic involved and there was all kinds of, crazy stuff. Now we know that if the person's face turns yellow, it's quite likely that they're having problems with their liver function, right? So what we've done is, through science, through experimental science and medicine, we've been able to connect those dots, right? And this has made our lives much, much easier. Another example, again, back in the old days, like even earlier in my lifetime, I remember when I was studying in the Hausa, where medicine wasn't as developed in that area. It was just a village where we studied. There was an individual who started becoming really tired all the time. He became lethargic. He became always exhausted. He would climb, 3 flights of stairs, and he'd be so tired he had to take a break, right? And we couldn't figure out what the problem was. Then he started putting on weight, and his weight increased until he was just not healthy. And we looked at his food, and the food was okay. We looked at the environment. He went to various doctors, and the doctors couldn't figure out what the problem was. Until one day he went to sleep. He never woke up from that sleep. He passed away. One of our fellow students in the house. And again, we couldn't figure out what the problem was. And because this thing happened over a prolonged period, it was a chronic illness, it was a prolonged period of time, the changes weren't so obvious. So then it turns out that he had a problem with his thyroid function. There's a disease called Graves' disease. Graves doesn't refer to the cemetery. It refers to an Irish physician named Robert Graves. And this guy was the one who discovered the autoimmune disease that we now call hypothyroidism. What's the thyroid gland? It's a tiny little gland that's right beneath the Adam's apple. It's right here in the neck, right? So what this does is that it releases a hormone in the body, and I don't want to get too technical, but it releases a hormone in the body that regulates metabolism and other functions of the human body. When this hormone is either excessively excreted or insufficiently excreted, either there's not enough of it or there's too much of it, what happens is you get thyroid toxicity. The reason I know all about this is because I had the same problem, right? So don't freak out. I'm not a doctor. But the point, and don't take any medical advice from me either. But the point I'm trying to make is this, that it took the Irish physician known as Robert Graves to draw the dots, to connect the dots, to say, look, when you see someone who is always lethargic, always exhausted, putting on weight for no reason, even though their food and their appetite is actually decreasing, it means that it's quite likely that you have thyroid toxicity or you don't have enough thyroid going into the system. So Fatima Zahra, what she's doing in this statement when she says that you want to relieve yourself of the wrath of God, then look after your parents. She's connecting those dots. Essentially what she's saying is she is revealing the secrets of the universe. She's revealing the spiritual connections that you and I would never be able to connect one to the other. And I'll mention just one more. She says, وَصِلَةَ الْأَرْحَامِ مَنْسَاتًا لِلْعُمْرِ, and looking after your kindred, your extended family members, this increases your lifespan. Again, you and I could never have experimented scientifically to connect these dots, but Fatima Zahra can. Fatima Zahra is hawra'un insiyya. Rasulullah called her an angel in human form. She knows what she's talking about. She says, if you want to prosper socially, if you want your numbers to increase, if you want your lifespan to be extended, then look after your family members. And by looking after, specifically, we are referring to financial assistance. You have a cousin back home who's struggling financially, help them out every once in a while. You have a second cousin or a distant aunt of your father or someone who is having financial problems, help them out. If you can't help them financially, the least you could do is comfort them. Give them a call every once in a while. Maraja issue fatwas saying that the simplest form of salatul rahim is to say salam, is to call them. This constitutes salatul arham. There's a guy called Ben Shapiro. I don't know if you know him, but he's a conservative commentator. He used to be an editor at large at Breitbart, right? So he's a very young, very articulate Jewish man. And I watched a speech that he gave, and in that speech he's talking about the social welfare state, right? The welfare state. And of course, him being very fiscally conservative, very anti-big government and all the conservative things that you hear. He said, look, and this was a really important point that I picked up. He said, look, when I have financial problems, when you, as in the liberals, right, the Democrats, the liberals, when you have financial trouble, you say that the government should help me out. Whereas when I have financial problems, I go number one to my family and number two to my synagogue. In other words, my community. Why do you think the Jewish community as a minority prospers and grows? Why do you think the Sikh community, which is a minority, prospers and grows? Why do you think the Bohra community, which is a minority within a minority within a minority, prospers and grows? Because they look after each other. Why do you think that as a community which has the examples of Fatima and Ali and Hassan and Hussein, oftentimes we struggle? Because we have failed to abide by these divine, universal principles that have been mentioned by Fatima Zahra and articulated in her Fadakiyya sermon. You want to grow socially, become stronger as a community, your lifespan to expand, look after your family. I will wrap up. Again, I do apologize. May Allah bless you all. The tragedy of Fatima Zahra is therefore one that is heartrending. 18 years old, still grieving for her father, pregnant, 6 months pregnant, with a son that was endowed his name by Rasulullah himself. When Fatima Zahra became pregnant, Rasulullah said, I would like to name him. And of course, both Ali and Fatima were honored to have the messenger give the name to this child just as he gave it to Hassan, Hussein, and Zainab. So the Rasulullah named him Muhsin. This fetus who, had he been born he would have been infallible. He would have been the object of adoration and emulation, just like Hassan and Hussein. And why wouldn't he? He is the son of Ali as well as Fatima. Fatima az-Zahra was pregnant. A pregnant woman is always treated in a special manner. You go to shops, you go to public transport, no matter where you go, if somebody sees a pregnant woman, they'll always volunteer to give their seats to her. Fatima az-Zahra, instead of being treated with respect, instead of being treated with delicacy, instead of being offered consolation for the loss of Rasulullah, she has to go around the houses of the Ansar for 40 nights, the hadith says. She had to go to their homes, knock at their doors. They would open the door. Ya Fatima az-Zahra, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what brings you to my house? And Fatima would say, do you remember the covenant that you made with my father on the day of Ghadir? The day of Ghadir was only 75 days away from the death of Rasulullah. A mere 75 days ago, you stood in broad daylight and you pledged your allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Where are you today? What are you doing? Not only did they break their allegiance and their covenant with Fatima az-Zahra, but they attacked and ambushed her home. As Zubayr says, he came out of the house of Fatima az-Zahra and he looked at all the spectators. That's what kills you. That's what kills you. Honestly, when we mention the tragedy of Fatima az-Zahra, we often talk about the wall, the door, the nail. We talk about these things. But the reality is that there were bigger tragedies. Chief among them is that Fatima, who is the central figure in Ayatul Tathir, the one that proved the infallibility and inerrant nature of Fatima, this person is accused of stealing money from the public treasury. Allahu Akbar. Abu Bakr said to her, listen, I love you, I respect you. I'll give you all of my money. But to give you from the public treasury, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Fatima az-Zahra is trying to get money from the public treasury. Another tragedy that is worth crying for. When Fatima az-Zahra, toward the end of her life, refused to accept, to receive the first and the second, her usurpers and her oppressors, they came to her house, they came and asked Amir al-Mu'mineen to grant them permission. He said, it's not within my authority. Fatima az-Zahra herself has to give permission for you to enter. The first began crying. It was all show, of course. The second looked at him, his friend. He looked at him, he said, why are you crying? He said, well, didn't you just see Fatima refuse to grant us an audience with her? He said, رضا النساء وسخطهن تبكيك وتضحكك. He said, you're crying because some woman didn't grant you an audience with her? This woman makes you cry and she makes you laugh? This same person, by the way, was the one who said, دعك من كلام النساء. He said, this is all old wives' tales, what you're telling me about God, the Prophet, Amir al-Mu'mineen, our covenant, our pledge, all these things, they're stuff that women talk about. Subhanallah. And so we're now left with a situation. I said this last night. It's a crime that the victim of it never spoke of the details. Why? Number one, out of modesty. There are some crimes that are so macabre that they're unspeakable. Even Fatima couldn't speak about what they did to her. Even the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt always spoke of it in a subtle way and with great pain. The victim never spoke, but the perpetrator spoke of it and boasted about it. The perpetrator confessed to those crimes, but Fatima never spoke. And so one poet says that in order for us to try and figure out exactly what happened in those few moments of the ambush against the house of Fatima, we have to ask the witnesses. He says, who are the witnesses? He said, first, let's go to the nail. And I will say, oh nail, You lived in the house of Fatima Zahra for all these years. How dare you penetrate the chest of Fatima? That's one witness out. The second witness, the front porch of Fatima Zahra. He says, oh, porch of Fatima, what is this blood I see staining you? Is this the blood of the chest of Fatima, or is this the blood of her son Muhsin, who was miscarried at this location? Who else do we have? How many witnesses can we bring to the witness stand? He says, let me ask the door, how dare you crush the daughter of Rasulullah against the wall? What other witnesses do we have? There is all this firewood that's been assembled here. The firewood, how dare you burn down the house of Fatima Zahra, the house that the Prophet of God approached for 6 months on a daily basis and said, Assalamu alaikum ya Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwah. You are the household that has been purified from Allah. So we're looking for witnesses to know exactly what happened. But there was one witness. This witness we can't question. We can't really interrogate him. Who was it? Fatima Zahra herself refers to this witness. She says, oh Allah, I ask you in the name of my son Hassan and his bitter cries for me. وَبُكَائِهِ عَلَيْهِ. Imam al-Hassan was a witness to all those travesties of justice. Imagine a 5-year-old child who was holding the hand of his mother Fatima. A mother holds the hand of her son. So why? So that the son doesn't run off in the street, so that he doesn't get lost. This witness was holding his mother's hands, or rather his mother was holding his hand so as to protect him. And yet all of a sudden he says that I saw the alleyway of our house became dark. I looked up and there were hundreds of thugs. These were mercenaries that were brought from the tribe of Bani Aslam. They were known to be notorious and violent. They were brought in to quell the uprising, to ensure that Fatima couldn't stand and challenge them. Suddenly the alleyway, which was illuminated with the sun, it became dark with hundreds of thugs approaching my mother Fatima Zahra. Their leader came forward. He said, Fatima, what is this in your hand? She said that this is a statement. It's a deed that was given to me by your friend who is now sitting on top of that throne. He said, what's written in it? She said, well, I convinced him to write that Fadak should be returned to its rightful owner. He said, Fatima, أعطني ذلك العهد. Fatima, give me that piece of paper. She said, no, I'm not giving you the piece of paper. So he said to his cousin Qunfudh, Ya Qunfudh, idribha. He gave the order. They all ambushed Fatima Zahra, beating her. I've said this before. You can't kill a human being with a slap across the face. But when it's not just a slap, but rather it is hundreds of men attacking her from every angle, what happens to her? Beating her with the stubard, beating her with the sheath of the sword. Do you know what a sheath is made from? It is made from wood. It is made from leather. It is made from all of these hard materials. They attacked Fatima. So instead of Fatima holding the hand of Hassan, it is Hassan who is holding the hand of his mother Fatima, trying to raise her from the ground. Mother, please get up. Let us go back to the house. They're attacking our father, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Which is why Imam al-Hassan, years passed from that day, he came across Al-Mughira. Ibn Shu'bah. Al-Mughira was to Imam al-Hassan the way Harmala was to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. When he saw Mughira, he said to him, Anta alladhi latamta ummi. I was only 5 years old, but I still remember that it was you who slapped the face of my mother Fatima. This brings us to the final witness of that crime. It is those pearls that were scattered across the ground. Imam al-Karim al-Kadhim says that they slapped our mother Fatima az-Zahra in such a manner that the pearls of her earrings fell and they were scattered across the ground. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه وفي كل يا حجة ابن الحسن وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, this verse in the Quran for prayers to be answered, for wishes to be granted, those of us who are going through troubling times, difficult times, especially those who are sick, those people who have asked us for du'as, inshallah, and in particular this friend and very fine young 24-year-old man, father of a young boy who has been diagnosed with leukemia. Let us all recite this verse for their recovery, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ ويكشف السوء. إلهنا عجل اللهم لوليك الفرج، اجعلنا من أصحابه وأعوانه وشيعته ومحبيه. اللهم احرس مراقد أئمتنا، اللهم انصرنا على أعدائنا، اللهم ارزقنا في الدنيا زيارة الحسين وفي الآخرة شفاعة الحسين، واحشرنا مع الحسين يوم الورود. اللهم تقبل أعمالنا، شاف مرضانا، اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان نهدي إليهم ثواب مجلسنا هذا وثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. يا حسين 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 يا حسين
یا حسین 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 سب سے زیادہ نام امام یا حسین 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 سب سے زیادہ نام امام یا حسین 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 حیا علی خیر العمل 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 یا حسین 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 حیا علی خیر العمل 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 یا حسین 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 حیا علی خیر العمل 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 یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین سب سے زیادہ نام امام یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی نام امام تحریر اٹھائے جواب نام امام ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بدلا ہے مدینہ اپنا حق مانگ رہی ہوں غاصب سے کلمہ گو کوئی نشی ہے اور میں کب سے کھڑی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں سب جواب نامے ماں تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایسا بدلا ہے مدینہ اپنا حق مانگ رہی ہوں غاصب سے کلمہ گو کوئی نشی ہے اور میں کب سے کھڑی ہوں تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں پوچھا ہے در نے بتا کیا کیا مسجد میں ہوا روکے بس اتنا کا کبھی دیواروں کو تھاما کبھی میں خاک پہ بیٹھی ہوں تک کر کبھی بیٹوں میں سنبھالا کبھی رستے میں گری ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی جواب نامے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا پوچھا ہے در نے بتا کیا کیا مسجد میں ہوا روکے بس اتنا کہا کبھی دیواروں کو تھاما کبھی میں خاک پہ بیٹھی ہوں تک کر کبھی بیٹوں نے سنبھالا کبھی رستے میں گری ہوں تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا ایسا بدلا ہے مدینہ اپنا حق مانگ رہی ہوں غاصب سے کلمہ گو کوئی نشی ہے اور میں کب سے کھڑی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر زہرا لوگوں میں بنت نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر جتنے دکھ میں نے سہے گھر یہ دن پر بھی پڑے وہ سے آراد بنے یہی دکھ کم تو نہیں ہے کس قدر تنہا مدینے میں ہوئی ہوں کوئی سنتا ہی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے کوئی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایسا بدلا ہے مدینہ اپنا حق مانگ رہی ہوں غاصب سے کلمہ گو کرسی نشی ہے اور میں کب سے کھڑی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں وہ تو غم سے ہے ابھی دور ہے شام سے بھی زینب آئے گی کبھی مجھ سے زینب نے یہ پوچھا کہاں جاتی ہو بتاؤ اے اماں میں نے زینب سے چھپایا کہ میں دربار چلی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایسے خاموش ہو کیوں کہنا چاہو تو کہو اما کچھ تو بولو کہ بولی بیٹوں سے ساتھ بہنوں کا نبھانا کربل میں ننگے سر کیسے چلے گی بس یہی سوچ رہی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایسے خاموش ہو کیوں کہنا چاہو تو کہو اما کچھ تو بولو کہ بولی بیٹوں سے ساتھ بہنوں کا نبھانا کربل میں رنگے سر کیسے چلے گی بس یہی سوچ رہی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایسا بدلا ہے مدینہ اپنا حق مانگ رہی ہوں غاصب سے کلمہ گو کرسی نشی ہے اور میں کب سے کھڑی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر سہارا لوگوں میں بنتے نبی ہوں ایک تحریر اٹھائے بولی دربار میں آ کر قربت بیت نبی دیکھے اکبر جو کبھی
سب سے ایک سورہ فاتحہ کی ریکویسٹ ہے مرحومہ صفیہ سلطانہ بنت سید محمد علی.
بسم اللہ الرحمن